Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are going to be talking about banishing your time demons, and I'm going to be your host, Leslie Hassler. Many of you know me, and I have to apologize. My voice will do this just a bit. I'm going to mute myself while I clear my throat real quick. Okay, I've been recovering from a nasty upper respiratory infection, and the coughing has just been lasting weeks. So I get the little frog in my throat every once in a while. So if I have to take a pause while I do that, you'll bear with me and understand. I want to just give a few minutes for a few more people to join us. I know it's hard to be here exactly at 1 o'clock. We all tend to be doing something, and then lo and behold, our 1 o'clock is come and gone and it's 1:03. But I do want to do a quick shout out for those of you who registered for this webinar. I love to see that people are interested in what I've got to share. So just want to say hello to Octavia, Gail, Grace, Jennifer, Lauren, Scott, Dee, Manisha, DG, Patty, Reba, Corey, Marnie, Will's HVAC Service, CSRA Kids, Kiss Judith Priv, that's interesting. Annex 27, Seekers 01, Courtright Management, Amy, Mabrike. I think that gets most of our list. So we have a good 25 people that have registered to be here today. So that's really exciting. What we're going to share with you is really some of the things that I teach my clients for sure, but also a lot of what I learned on a journey of about 3 years. So I will let you know from the beginning, and we'll get a little bit into that. But I am a person that has grown to love rules and boundaries, but it is not my nature, not by any means. I do tend to have a little bit more of a creative spirit. I have that maverick spirit that wants to do what I want, when I want, and how I want to do it. But that spirit isn't always in my best interest or in anyone's best interest. And so these are really some hard-run learnings that I've learned and that I now teach with my clients. I'm going to go ahead and get started because we just have a few minutes of introductory slides so people won't miss out on too much if they've been with us before. But again, we're here for banishing your time demons, the rules to being able to grow your business in 20 hours a week or less. And I really do think you can grow and run a business on 20 hours. You can definitely grow it and build it on 80 hours. But I feel like a lot of us would much rather spend our those 60 hours doing something else. So let's dive into this and get moving. So there we go. And by the way, guys, I opened up the chat box. I think I've done it correctly. So when you pop in, go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know you're there. Say howdy and introduce yourself if you're a good Texan, or if you want to pretend you're a good Texan today, we can do that. Okay, so why do I do what I do? Many of you know my entrepreneurial story. Know that my parents were entrepreneurs, although not very successful, and they did have a failing of one of their businesses that really kind of destroyed our family and broke it apart and would send us all in different directions. And that one episode of my childhood kept me away from my natural tendency to be an entrepreneur. And so the deal that I have with myself, so to speak, is that if I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I am going to make sure that I can protect my family in doing that, and that I'm not giving up or compromising the health of my family in order to have a business. So a lot of the things that I share with you is done from that vantage point of family first, business second. And a lot of how I coach my clients to really build and design their businesses and reinvent their businesses goes about putting you and your business, or you and your family first and your business second. And so that's kind of a counterintuitive way of setting things up. It's definitely not the way that's been prescribed for a long time out there. You know, we've got Tim Ferriss and other people of the world who are kind of opening everyone's eyes to that. And that's really where a lot of this information comes, is from my desire to protect family first and be successful in business second. Now, if you've seen last month's webinar, you saw I talked about all the stages of entrepreneurship that I have been through, and I didn't want to go through those today, but I wanted to start with what I think was the most important phase for this, and that was really the failing entrepreneur phase. And for you that may not know, the failing entrepreneur phase was really in my first business, about the time that the recession hit, when we lost over 50% of our business. And the way that I felt like I had to fix that, or one of the ways that I felt like I needed to fix that, was by working harder. And so when I was in this failing entrepreneur phase, 80-hour weeks was nothing. I mean, that was typical. And I want to share with you what that really meant. So because I couldn't sleep, because I was so stressed out because of the business, I would oftentimes get up at 6 and literally like get up, put the pot of coffee on, walk over to the computer, sit down and work at my computer until 7:30, which would be the time I needed to get my kids up and start to get them fed and dressed. So I'd get them fed, dressed, off to school, and I went to 2 different schools at that time. Do all of that stuff, be back at the house about 9. I would then work from 9 straight through lunch until 5:30. And it was really, I stopped working because I had to, not because I wanted to. And the reason that I say I had to was because it was time to pick up the kids. Like, I couldn't wait any longer. I couldn't put it off any longer. I had to go pick up the kids. And so I went, picked up the kids, came home, cooked dinner, did the mom thing, got everybody fed. And then that would probably put us, what, about 7 o'clock? I, I would go back to work. While the family, I'm laughing at myself now, but while the family was sitting there enjoying each other's company, maybe, watching some TV, maybe reading a book, whatever that might be, I went back to work. I willingly chose to get up, walk over to my computer, sit down, and go to work. And I would do that until it was bedtime. I'd get up, put them to bed, and guess what I would do? I'd go back to work. And then I would work until midnight. I mean, that was my day. Saturday would be family. Sunday, I would go back to work again. Part of it is what I felt like I needed to do and to make business successful. And the story that I told myself at that point in time was that I had to work these hours. I had to make this business successful, and then I could enjoy my family. But if you've been there, if you come out of it, you kind of know that's a bit of a trap, and it never seems to be enough to be able to have you spending more time with your family, spending time with yourself, taking care of yourself, just not being a slave in your business. And that's very, very much what I was, as I was a slave in my business. I worked for my business. My business did not work for me. And so that is kind of my, I guess, the low point in when I really started trying to I was exhausted from it. I'll be honest, I was exhausted from it, but I didn't know how to get out of it. And so if you know the next part of the story, is that I was awarded an International Business Award for turning around my business 150% in 6 months. And that was really great because we fixed the money part, right? Yay! I was still working those stinking 80 hours. Like the someday, part of the story that I was telling myself, when this business is successful again, I'll stop working as much, as hard. I didn't do it because it had become a multi-year habit that I didn't know how to break. And while I was being successful, I actually did have a bit of internal struggle going on because I could see it still wasn't everything that I thought I was going to have. And I think that was part of the equation of me not working those crazy hours, was that I was expecting more and I didn't have it. And so I didn't feel like I could reward myself by not being crazy in the hours. Somebody says howdy out there. Howdy right back at you. So this, the next part of the story is really my opportunity to reinvent. And this was God's gift to me in a lot of ways, because he broke the habit, he broke the cycle. He gave me the opportunity to break the cycle in a way that I couldn't help but break the cycle. And when my husband and I decided to move from Houston to Dallas to be closer to my in-laws, because my mother-in-law has dementia and Alzheimer's. And as a course of that, it really pulled me out of my business. I was lucky enough to have staff at this time, probably couldn't have done it without my staff, but really by pulling myself out of the business, I started to notice that we were still billing, $25,000 a month, and I was having very little to do with it. And I started going, huh, look at that. What's going on here? And I really started looking at what it was that I needed to do to keep bringing the business in, because that's one of my top roles, right? As a business owner, one of your top roles is to bring business into your company. But what was amazing was how much stuff I was able to let go. So what I found through the course of this is, if you say, even in 2011, I was generous in saying maybe I wasn't working 80 hours, maybe I was only working 60 hours. It's still crazy hours. But the move really showed me the way that I could have more money in my business. Without staff, through the course of the move, people transitioned and I didn't replace because I was experimenting and I wanted to see what would happen, and wound up still being able to grow the business 20% 2012 over 2013. We moved in 2012. Just me, and I was able to do it on 25 hours a week. So in a brand new market where nobody knows me from Adam, I'm able to find business, market business, and service business in 25 hours a week. That's pretty amazing. And so what I want to share with you today, and part of where the Banish Your Time Demons came about, was helping you understand what it is that's filling all those other hours, because they're not always productive hours. So I talk about the fact that I consider myself to be a very intentional entrepreneur here today, and that's something that I help guide my clients along with every single time, is being very intentional in their business. And so I hope you'll kind of see some of the parts of this presentation and what I'm going to share with you that really all start with your intention and being true to that intention. So this is a very serene image for me, very peaceful, full of promise, full of life, full of, a day's blessing. And that's really where I see that intentional entrepreneurship being, and where I would kind of invite you to come with us on today. And get the slide to move. All right, so the rules of the house, and this is one of the things you'll find today, is about being present. There's no greater gift than you can give to yourself. It is not about me. It is so not about me. It's about you and how you respect yourself. But if you can be present here for an hour so that you can just maybe catch that one concept that could shift your life, then that's my best gift that I can give to you. But I have to remind you to be present. That means turning off the tweeps, burps, beeps, blops, vibrates, cuckoos, whistles, all of that nice fun stuff, just so you can be present for the next hour. And I know it's hard. I know we're tempted to multitask. I can be the worst along with everybody else, but I would say if you're going to get the most out of what we've got today, to be present. As well as introduce yourself. I'd love to say, we've got the chat open, so say hi. Share with the other people on the webinar what your aha moments are. There's a huge impact to you just being able to type an aha moment and sharing it with others. It kind of like concretes it into your brain and helps your brain do something with it. But if you ever know those ideas that float into your head and float out of your head quick enough, if you don't write it down, you've forgotten it, or it's gone. That's what this concept is about, is really sharing those key, like, oh my gosh, that's a light bulb moment for me. Oh, I did not know that. Oh my gosh, I want to do this. I need to think about this. All those comments that you can just share within this, very private space, will help you assimilate the information and help you really be able to do something with today's information. I'm not about wasting your time. So if you can't tell, I'm trying to make sure you're going to get a lot of value and be able to do something. If you have a question or a comment, please feel free to put it in the chat room as well. I will be honestly really focused on making sure that I'm preparing something for you and giving you value, but I will try to check over and say hi back or see if I can answer any questions along the way. And I thought, hi, Grace, how are you? I'm so happy that you could be here. Grace actually shot me an email over this last week, and I love that. I love, love, love hearing from everybody. And she's actually took our survey and kind of gave some great feedback there. So I'm excited. Hi, Grace. Thank you for coming, as well as, you know, comments. So if you have comments, questions, aha moments, introduce yourself, say hi, and then let's have a good time. All right. Start to get into the meat of the matter. So pay it forward is really what this time is about. I'm going to share with you as much as I can, as deep as I can in an hour and a half. Know that this information took me 3 years to assimilate. Thankfully, it doesn't take my clients that long to assimilate, but even they'll tell you it's a bit of a process. I actually have a couple clients who've registered for this webinar just so they can get the information again and help them along with their progress and how they're running their businesses. So it's a pay it forward time for sure. And if you think there's somebody out there that would have benefited from this, you know, share the emails that we put out, share the information. They can come in and participate in this without being a part of our community. So this is really going to be for you if you feel busy, but you don't have much to show for it. I say, if you're busy, but there's nothing in your bank account, then we need to talk, you know, because busy doesn't mean production. And so we're really about being productive and efficient in our businesses. If you really feel like you have sacrificed enough personal and family time, if you were like me and you are working more than 40 hours a week, more than 60 hours a week, more than 80 hours a week, if you are living, eating, sleeping, drinking your business, then this is really something for you. And like I said earlier, I worked for my business. When you're a slave in your business, you're working for your business isn't working for you. If you're ready to turn that around, if you're ready to actually have your business work harder for you than you do for it, then that's going to be great for today. You're going to get a lot out of today. The things that we're going to talk about, so we're going to talk about our silent time links and the demons that rob you of 2 hours a day. We're going to learn some easy and practical techniques. Look, I'm all about easy and practical and simple and sustainable. So if it is not doable in your life, if I see my clients can't assimilate it and can't pick it up and make it work in their lives, I'm going to find a way to make it even more simple, because that's really the key to change, is how simple is it and how easily can you adapt it. But a lot of these techniques have the potential to increase your productivity astronomical. And if you increase your productivity by 50%, you could drop your hours that you're working. And that's really my goal in life. I hope it's one of yours. We're going to talk about the 5 rules of time and really what you need to do in order to be in control of your time and get a lot more done. And then I'm going to share some, real life case studies, client stories, my stories. I think we learned so much through stories, and I want to show you the validity of what we're talking about today. So we're going to be a little bit of a Superman and Superwoman here. I want to start off with why time management is a myth. Because it is. I talk about time management because that's the concept that people understand. But when you look at time management, it's really a darn right boring subject, right? I probably bored you just by the words time management and putting it out there. But there's a couple of key concepts we have to get through for you to open your mind and shift how you think about time. The first thing is that, you know what? Time is not manageable. You cannot tame it. You can't control it. Those minutes will come and the minutes will go. The clock does not stop due to anything that you are doing. So the idea that you can manage it, I think, is a bit of a falsehood. And so much concept about time management is so much more about recording. And to me, the recording is one of the least important parts of it, right? It's all about the planning and the execution and how you follow through on things, and a lot less about the recording. So you can't tame time. I have the tiger up there. You can't tame a tiger. Well, I know you can, but you can't tame a tiger. Time is a bit wild like this, and it can be ferocious or it can be silent. And so we just need to give it a little bit of respect, you know, in that case, and stop trying to really tame it. Our myth number two is that you can't control time. It's if you take just a slightly spiritual look at time, God created night and day. Those are two really big chunks of time. Man created everything else. Man created the year, the month, the week, the day, the hour, the minute, the second. And just in case, we thought we couldn't control time more, we created things like hundreds of seconds and nanoseconds. And what I was thinking about this morning, what was really interesting to me is even when we're talking about the fastest man alive, if you think about the Olympics and how we're classifying who's fastest. We classified the fastest, quote unquote, fastest in retrospect to time, not to speed. We think time and speed are relative, and that's why we choose time. But see, we've like pierced it and cut it into the most smallest of fragments, and then we compete against it. So it's amazing to me how much we try to control time. And one of the ways that we've tried to control it is in our chunking and our breaking it down in our definition of time. I think we're really doing all of this because we're trying to triumph over time. We're trying to beat the clock, as it were. And I think that's kind of our next myth. This is actually a really easy read by Mitch Albom. It's called The Timekeeper. And it kind of talks about the invention of time and the first man that wanted to really record time. And this is a profound segment. And I think it really classifies a lot of why time management is a myth. But, it's like if you tried to imagine a life without timekeeping, you probably can't. You know the month, the year, the day. There's a clock on your wall on the dash of your car. You have a schedule, a calendar, a time for dinner and a movie. Yet all around you, timekeeping is ignored. The birds are not late. A dog does not check his watch, and the deer do not fret over passing birthday. Man alone measures time. Man alone chimes the hour. And because of this, man alone suffers a paralyzing fear that no other creature endures. The fear of time running out. I had to read that to you. I don't read my slides, but I had to read that to you because it really is profound. If you think about what our fear is, it's that there's not enough hours in the day, that we can't beat the clock, that we can't get it all done. And there's a fear to it. If you were to pass away tomorrow, God forbid, would you be okay with that? Like, could you say that everything that you set out to do has been done? And so there's just this fear of time that we have incorporated into our lives, into our culture, that in some ways keeps us away from using it properly. It's really quite interesting. So those are the three myths. You cannot tame time, you cannot control it, and you cannot triumph it. You cannot be triumph over it. So let's talk about the gift of time, because truly time is a gift, right? It is a gift given to us, and each day is a gift. And if you appreciate that, you can kind of have a better use of each gift of a day, right? So I have an exercise, and I call it the rubber band exercise. And if you happen to have one around you, I want you to go ahead and get a rubber band out. I'm going to check on our comments, see how we're doing, give you just a second to do that. I know, Grace, it is actually a really good book, very interesting, and you'll have to see the plot twist. I'm not giving it away. It is fictional, but sometimes our best ideas can come from fiction. So, all right. So I hope that you have a rubber band. And what I want you to do is I just kind of want you to hold the rubber band in your hand for a moment. And if you see, it kind of represents this circle, right? This is a, if you want to say, this is a moment in time. This could be this moment in time. It could be any moment in time. And it has, you know, definition, right? It's got a circle, it has boundaries, it has things like that. But the most amazing thing is if you were to put your fingers, so put your two index fingers and your two thumbs into the rubber band, and you were just to start to stretch the rubber band. You can stretch that rubber band tremendously, right? You can create more space within that rubber band. And if this rubber band represents a moment of time, you've stretched your ability to use that time. Here's why time management fails you. Let go of the rubber band. What happened to it? The rubber band collapses, right? Back to its original shape. It doesn't retain any of the flexibility. It doesn't retain any of the space. When you have in the past used, some of the time management principles that are out there to expand your time, you have created more space. But because you didn't give anything, you didn't give this rubber band a container to hold its space, you didn't give it a structure in which to maintain the space, it will slowly creep back to the original space. So when you are trying to improve time and trying to improve time management, you feel like, oh, this is working, and it's not working. The reason why is because you haven't done enough with the time that you've created. And so that's one of the things that I'm actually going to go a little deep into towards the end of this, once we get back past some of these concepts of really is how do you do that? Because it's truly about the protection of that expansion. You're keeping that rubber band expanded as much as you possibly can so that you can have greater moments of time and not just minutes of time in your life. That's going to be the key to making this all work. All right. That is a concept that might blow your mind right now, but hang in with me. It'll start to make some more sense. But I had to give you a visual. I love visuals. I don't know if you love visuals, but I love visuals. So when we're in our normal state of thinking about time, we're focusing on the minutes. We talk about time wasted. You remember, time lost cannot be regained. We're talking about all these aspects of time that really are quite negative. But what I want you to really think about is that our demons that we're going to talk about are things that keep you focusing in on the minutes. The minutes is really what the mass of our world thinks about when they think about time. Minutes are important. They're, obviously how we keep track of time. I'm not going to say let's redo the time system or anything. It is what it is. It's been around for a long time. But I want to challenge you that really what it's all about is about the moments. And if you start to think about moments and you think about minutes, if you think about a minute, I'll ask the question, how long is a minute? Okay, 60 seconds, right? Easy question. How long is a moment? I mean, can you really put a time frame around a moment? That's part of what makes moments so magical. They still represent a time, right? A place and time where something special happened. It could have been a moment of creation. It could have been a moment of love. It could have been a moment of complete and utter presence where nothing else mattered, where you were in that magical bubble, right? Where only all that mattered was what's in front of you. Moments last a lifetime. Moments are magical. I mean, we even say it was the moment that took my breath away. When you start to think about time, you have to start thinking about the moments. And really, what is it that makes the moment? Moments happen to be the time that we experience the most happiness, the most joy. While we could be in a grief moment, that's certainly possible. There's usually something profound that we've come to realize or that we take notice of when we would consider it to be a moment. And so I want to challenge you with this to really be about making more moments. And that whole concept, like I said earlier, about being present is really about creating these moments. So it's not, I was talking with a client and we were talking about time and balancing, what she wants to do with her family, with the business, and feeling good about being wherever she needs to be. And the real secret of it is about being 100% present wherever you are, wherever you need to be at that moment, is being present there. When we are too busy worried about the minutes, how many more minutes we left, and oh my gosh, I can't remember, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, and my to-do list is a mile long, and did I remember to send this email, and da 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 da. We're not being present in the moment. And so we tend to, give away the freedom and the opportunity that we have when we've created this little bubble. So when you are looking at your moments, and I challenge you to think of a few of yours. If you just could think about some of the special moments in your life, if it was a birth of a child, getting married, starting your business, your first client, whatever those elements might be, and start to see how really valuable they are. If you can absorb that concept of the rubber band, about how, at its, it represents a moment, and how big of a moment can you make it be and give it space to sustain. And then when you use those moments to really create this kind of magic effect of a bubble, of being 100% present no matter where you are, then you start to be able to do something with the time that I'm about to give you. And I want to challenge you with that first. I want you to start thinking about the possibilities that could exist for you first, so that you are more motivated and excited about what I'm going to share with you next. So let's go. So let's talk about these lovely silent time demons. And when we get here, I'm going to share with you, there's actually 5. Don't you love our little time demons? We actually worked really hard on getting those done. But the 5 of them are the distraction, indecision, delayed action, difficulty, and division. And these guys really, if I wanted to personify them for you, because they are true forces out in the world. They keep you away from being able to have moments of creation, moments of greatness, moments of concentration, moments of presence, moments of joy, moments of contentment. But they're invisible. And so we don't always give them the cred or the importance that they really start to do when they start to shape our world. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the first 3, because they're probably the biggest 3. And in and of itself, that giving you back 2 hours a day is something I could do just by talking about just distraction. And you'll find out I'm actually going to show you like 12 hours of your week that are dedicated and taken from you by distraction. I mean, if you can see that these demons are robbing you, and that's a crime that you should be protecting yourself against, you'll start to get back all that stuff that you thought you had to wait for someday to be able to get. So let's get into the demons. I want to check in with you guys before we go a little bit further. Everyone doing okay? Anybody have any questions so far? Howdy, howdy. Now's your time to say. Okay. Well, let's go on to the deadliest time demon of all, distraction. I call him our big bad meanie. He's kind of like the ringleader of everything. He is pervasive in our life and in our world. And it's a really hard demon to put up defenses against, because a lot of times we've invited this distraction into our life. And a lot of these distractions really kind of came to us as aids, something that was meant to help, something that was meant to simplify. But what happened in return was something completely different. Sorry there. So what you will find is that there are tons of devices in our lives anymore. I mean, I honestly think I rue the day the cell phone was invented. I think I would love to go back to the day before, where it was just a lot quieter. But all of these devices that we have, whether it's, the computer, games, iPhones, apps on your phone, Angry Birds. Angry Birds is not as popular right now. What is it? Clash of Clans, and my kids just love the apps. Five Nights at Freddy, and whatever silly game is out there. you know, all of these things are really have come into our lives to be a help, like we talked about. We were looking at, if you think about voicemail was meant to help us for missed calls. And if you think about what came after that, well, email came after that. Email was meant to be a replacement for voicemail. It was not meant to be an instant response system that we've come to expect it to be. I mean, even when you registered for, this webinar, if you've taken advantage of our free gifts, you expected that free gift to be in your inbox, like instantly. And if it took 2 minutes, heaven forbid, I'm the same way. I registered for something today and I was like, where's the email? Where's the email? We've been conditioned that it's now this instant response system. There's some things of this that are fun if you think about Facebook and social media. And I believe in social media, but I also believe that it can be one of our demons as well. All of these things really have become an addiction. And if you think about it, there's actually a really good reason that it's become an addiction. And it's called variable interval reinforcement schedule. Blah, 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 blah. What it means is that our interaction with all of these distractions and devices, our email, our games, our Facebook, our phone calls, all of these things, text messages, is addictive because of the nature of our brain, because none of it is regulated, none of it is regimented, which means that you don't get a text one every 30 seconds. You don't get a Facebook like, love, comment, share every 3 minutes, right? It's not expected. And if you think about it, AOL kind of had it perfectly with the email of, you've got mail. I mean, do you remember that? It's like everyone had it. You've got mail. An email would come in. You've got mail. And there's a part of our brain that equates that with being loved, with being liked, with being affirmed. And so that little dopamine, little place right back in our brain wants more. And what's really funny is, like a drug, it takes more to get the high. And so what we do is we check our email every 15 minutes. I can tell you, I've watched myself do it on my phone. I'm like, I just checked my email 10 minutes ago. Why am I here? The answer is because I don't have anything in that time frame to take me somewhere else. That tells me when I need to do some course correcting. But it's the same thing with games. I mean, it's actually programmed in to games to have differing ways to score. You can't always score the same way. It's why we have video game addictions. It's why we're addicted. Okay, I'm in that area a long time, but it really is a big source of why distraction is so pervasive in our lives, is because it triggers something in our brain, and we haven't given our brain something else that gives us that same kind of reward system or a joy that we can look forward to. So what does this all cost us? Straight up, these are crazy, easy statistics to go out there. A couple of them are, maybe a couple years old. We might start to see stuff for 2014 come out, and I'll update these. But let's just say that you check your phone 300 times a day. You would think that might not be possible, but it's actually an average out there of how many times people look at their phone and engage with it. If you only spent 10 seconds a check, and that's like here, turning on, getting to the text, to the email app, I'm sitting here playing with my phone, just going, okay, it's going to take me that long. 10 seconds. That means you're not really engaging with it. You're going, oh, is there anything there? No, there's nothing. 10 seconds a check. That's 50 minutes a day. We think it's small, but when it starts to add up, you start to see what your big chunk is. Email, just checking email is 28% of most people's week. At 40 hours a week, that's 11.2 hours, 2.5 hours a day, 2.25 hours a day. Already you've seen 3 hours a day. I mean, if that's times 5, if you're just talking the weekday, that's 15 hours. Just 15 hours just checking in. And then I put this next one in here because I think it's the other part of it is, interruptions and distractions can happen to us electronically. That's just one focus of here because it is such a pervasive. But the honest truth is that if you have staff, if you are one of those people that pick up the phone no matter where you are and what you're doing in an effort to be responsive, I have actually called people for our podcast show and had them pick up the phone and then tell me that they're in a meeting. And I want to go, why are you picking up the phone if you are in a meeting? That is an interruption, okay? That interruption can cost you minimally 15 minutes to be able to get reset, retract, and get back onto whatever it was you're working on. If you don't think this is true, if you think about it, if you just have somebody walk into your office, ask you a question, you answer the question, and then you sit back and you look at what you were doing and go, now where was I? Where was I? What was I doing? So your brain needs the time to get reacclimated to where it was and get back into its thought process. How many times do you get interrupted during the day? If it's 4 times, if you have employees, it's probably a lot more than 4 times. You can just start to see the massive amounts of time that get blown out of the water without us even really trying. And part of the reason is because we don't take distractions seriously enough in our businesses, in our lives, period. I'm kind of the electronic Nazi in my house, because of this, because I just see how much it eats up and can really impact your life. So that is really the cost of distraction. There's a slide on here that's showing where we spend our time in the daily time spent, but, and this says 58 minutes a day on your phone. It's impactful, guys. All right, I want to talk about the twins next. And I call them the twins because they tend to get hand in hand and they tend to kind of affect each other. So, indecision and delayed action. And I was like kind of AKA being confused and procrastination, right? And this is one of my husband and I's favorite lines because we use it with our children all the time. But it's basically, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. And we have a overwhelming, the slide I'm going to stay there, but really an overwhelming odds against us. When you look at the number of decisions that the average human, just the average human, I'm not even talking about an entrepreneur, goodness knows we have so many more that we're responsible for. Just the average human makes 35,000 choices in a day. In a day. That means that you're basically making a conscious or unconscious decision every 2.5 seconds. That's a lot. And we wonder why we can't decide what's for dinner. We're overwhelmed with the amount of choices that we have. I mean, some of the greatest gifts, again, internet, oh my gosh, you can get whatever you need from wherever you need it. You can find it cheaper, faster, whatever. It's overwhelming. And if you'll notice in our retail market, especially in supermarkets, a couple of things that I've noticed is, at one point in time, it was, let's have everything on the shelves. Let's be the end all be all for whoever, our clients. Have you noticed how that's starting to shrink? That there's not as many brands being carried? It's actually trickling slowly down as they're reducing the amount and the variedness that they've actually brought onto the shelves. Part of that reason is it's overwhelming for us to have 10 choices. When I used to, in my design business, what I would do is if I only would ever present 2 to 3 choices at a time to a client. Any more than that was overwhelming and they would not be able to make a choice. And my job at that point in time was decisions, right? We needed a decision to be able to move forward. So we get into this mode of indecision. because there are so many decisions to be made, right? And so when you get into that moment of indecision, it really is about indecision killing momentum. Your ability to make a choice, to act on that choice, and to move and implement that choice is one of the biggest skill sets you can have as an entrepreneur. But if you're flooding yourselves with decisions, you're slowing yourself down. You may spend 6 hours researching, 8 hours researching, when you really had your answer at the first hour. You may just delay a decision, and put it off for 6 months. And that really costs you either the opportunity to hit momentum in the market or, just delays you 6 months. It's very silent. It's kind of nebulous. You don't see it as much as you do distraction. Like, I can't give you the stats on distraction, that I could give you on distraction. I can give you stats all day long, right? I can tell you how you're wasting your time. I can show it to you. I can scientifically prove it. Indecision and procrastination is a little bit more fuzzy. But the truth is, it is what drives one of the biggest difference between an entrepreneur that is able to be successful in their business in under a year and those not. Even Your Biz Rules was built in 7 months. 7 months to the day we launched. And part of that is the ability to decide and make a choice. So let's get on to the next twin. Procrastination. Oh my goodness, we are awesome at this. We love this. We even wear a badge of honor that says, I just work better under pressure. I am great with deadlines. The problem is, especially in entrepreneurship, is guess who creates the deadlines? You do. And because you can't make a choice or a decision, and you don't know enough, so you don't know if that's the right thing. We're really concerned about being right. We put it off. We say, well, today's not the right time. I actually had a client conversation, and she's like, well, maybe I should put it off because of this. Maybe I should put it off because of that. And sometimes you have very, very, very good reasons to delay something. But when it is a habitual, well, I'm not going to start that now. Okay, well, how long have you been not going to start something? Well, I've been thinking about it for 3 years. That's procrastination. There's certain things that somebody said to me, there's no good time to have a child. You never have enough money, enough time, enough to do anything. And if we all waited for the enough, we would never have any kids. It's about the same with your business. There's really never going to be enough when you exactly need it. But if you waited, it would never be the right time. It is a silent time leak because we just put off to tomorrow what we should be doing today. And so those indecision and the procrastination, I think, are the next two biggest time links that you have. But I can't prove to you how many hours that those things are. It really has a lot more to do with how quickly you're able to move, how quickly you're able to get to your goal of money, time, the type of client that you have. All of those things have to do so much in this area. And honestly, they waste your time. They waste a lot of time for you. And so I wanted to bring those in so that I could share with you. So hopefully you could see the opportunities that you have in your life to maybe change a little bit of this. How are we doing out there? Don't know enough. Yeah, still trying to figure out some tech related things. There are going to be some things that take time to figure out for sure. But, it's about getting to good enough, and not being perfect. We're looking at a membership software right now, and Amy, my VA, and I are talking back and forth. We're like, where's good enough in here? What will give us what we want to do and know that we can upgrade at a later point in time? How quickly can we be responsive to the need that we see? That's really kind of the goal. So good enough is one of the best things I could share with you. I want to share another book with you, and this is Napoleon Hill. Most everybody knows Napoleon Hill. Very few people know this book, Outwitting the Devil. Before I encourage you to read it, I will say that it was held from publishing until after Napoleon Hill's death due to some of the controversial slash judgmental tones that he took towards the church and towards education. If you can read it with a grain of salt, if you've got the ability to read through some of the rhetoric, there's some really good parts in this. And so throughout the course of the book, he's interviewing the devil and talking about why are you against man succeeding? What are you here on? And the concept that you come away from is that, the devil does not come through into your world in a way that is obvious. He's coming in through a way that is very subconsciously subtle. And so you don't notice the impact it has on your life. But there's one quote in here that talks about lazy plus indifference equals procrastination and drifting. So the inability to choose, the indifference, the not making a choice, plus a little bit of non-ambition, let's say, gets you into this procrastination and drifting mode. There's so many businesses out there drifting, not moving anywhere, just kind of going side to side. Maybe they go up and then they come back. They're drifting. When you read this and it talks about the tone of a non-drifter, and you will see this in people that you admire as being highly successful. They are engaged in doing something definite through some well-organized plan, which is definite. It has been defined. He has a major goal towards which he is always working. Many minor goals, but they're all leading to the central goal scheme. You can tell by the tone of his voice, the quickness of his step, the sparkle in his eyes, the quickness of his decisions. Mark him as a person that knows exactly what he wants and is determined to get it, no matter. You can see that in people. Can you not? Can you not walk into a networking meeting and listen to somebody talk about their business and what they're doing, and no matter how crazy you might think their goal is, man, that person is on fire. That person's going to go somewhere. And even if he's shooting from the stars or shooting for the moon and, fails and lands in the stars, he's still going to be good. That person's still going to be so close and happy. And there's a difference when you're talking to a business that doesn't have the same focus, a business owner that doesn't have that, we're hoping next year is better. Oh, really? What do you think that might be? Oh, well, I don't know. When you don't know, that's exactly what you're going to get. It's kind of the value of knowing. You're more likely to get it when it's defined. So that's kind of, I think, a great synopsis to indecision and procrastination and how they rob you, is they just keep you drifting. And so you never seem to get better. You just kind of seem to be here, there, the gentle rolls of the waves that take you really just in a circle to come right back up to the next place where you've been all along. So I hope that hit home. I hope there were some realizations in there about, what distraction, what procrastination, what delayed action and indecision really costs you in your business. Okay, so let's talk about the 5 rules of time. And we're going to have a chance. I'm going to go ahead and go on to what the rules are. We're really just going to have an opportunity to go into the top 2. Know that there's 3 more here, and I'll go into them a little bit more in a minute. But I want to start you off with rediscovering the freedom of college. This was an amazing concept that took me, I don't know why it took me a while to hit on it as the analogy of how you shift your concept of time, but it'll make a lot of sense. Then we're going to talk about time targets and blocks, because I think that's the most useful thing I can give to you today that I can share with you that you could actually put into impact tomorrow. All right. And then we'll go over these last 3 here in a minute after we've had a time to dig deep into the first 2. So I want you to rediscover the freedom of college. I'm hoping most of you have had some college experience, at least in the way of trying to figure out what your semester schedule was. When you're in college, it's all about okay, I need to work 24 hours. I need to have time for study. I want to work out. I don't want to do night classes. At least I didn't. I didn't want to do night classes, and I hate doing anything work related on Fridays. That's just who I am. So I didn't want any Friday classes. I wanted either Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. I'd like them in the morning, and then they were done, and I could get on with the rest of my day. But and there's so many tools now. I was looking and researching some of this stuff. I was looking out there. There's tools now. We didn't have tools 20 years ago. It was about taking the schedule, turning the page, writing down your potential classes, going over here, writing those all down, looking at your course load, looking at how much time you'd have left over, labs, all this nice fun stuff. And then you like got out a calendar, right? Or at least, labeled something Monday through Friday, and you sat there and you worked your schedule. Well, can I do this class here? No, I can't do that class here because its lab interferes with this class. Okay, what other class can I do? And it was an ordeal, right, to figure it out. And then you had to have contingencies in case your class was full by the time you got to register. Right? There was a lot of planning that went around it. But if you think about it, there wasn't really, very rarely, any two semesters that were similar. You always had to redo this schedule, right? You always had to redo everything that you were going to fit in. And if you were like most college students, you wanted some play in there. I know I did. I was not necessarily at college to only go to school. I was at college to experience something new. That was a major goal for me. But you always had this concept of, okay, I'm going to do this here. That's an hour block between there. That means I'll have enough time to walk, and then I can do some 30 minutes of studying. And this class, oh my gosh, I've heard Kim is just crazy. I need to have more time to study for this, so I'll study here. Right? You gave yourself blocks of time. You defined what that would be, and you made everything work. And if your workout was at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, because that's the time that you had it, you didn't feel guilty about it being at 10 a.m. on Tuesday. If you had to take a class at 2 o'clock because that's when it was offered and it worked with your entire schedule, you didn't feel guilty that you weren't able to be working out at that time. Does that make sense? Like there was a lot less guilt around the concept of our schedules. But then we get into corporate where it's 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever you like to work. And it's all about being busy, right? Being productive, being at work from 8 to 5 and looking busy. Right? That's really what it's about. So then if you wanted to work out at 10, there was a reason, or at least somebody else that was saying, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. Right? There's this guilt that we took on after college, post-college, about where our time was spent. What we really need to do is get back to a bit of that college mindset. If you looked at all of the things that you need to do as a business owner, as a parent, as a spouse, as a volunteer, as whatever is on your plate that fulfills you, think about it a little bit more as being back in college. And you're more allowing time for all of these things. So when you create a block of time, which we're going to talk about here in a second, think of it as that rubber band that we were talking about. We expand it. We're expanding it when we get rid of some of our distractions, when we're 100% present and creating the moment. When we give a block on our schedule, we're giving that moment a container that holds it. Does that make sense? It's a way to keep the rubber band expanded. So it'd be just the same as you had 5 glasses and you put your family rubber band around one glass, your work rubber band around another glass, your me rubber band around the 3rd glass, volunteer around another one, church, whatever it is that you need to fill those buckets on. Then you can start playing this bit of what is the little distraction game that they would play where, like, see where the marble is underneath the walnut shells, the little game there. That's kind of what you're doing. You're moving things around in a fluid motion within a confined space. And your confined space is your Monday through Sunday, your Monday through Friday, however you want to look at it. In my life, it's Monday through Sunday. because we live a busy life, an active life. I won't say busy, but we live an active life. So if you can kind of go back to that as how this works, why this works, because it worked in college, took a little bit of planning, but you probably enjoyed it. And the thing that I love about it is because you can always have a new semester. You can always change these things. And this is something that I change for holiday months, for seasonal, like summer months. I change it completely. I constrict how many hours I'm willing to work in deference to my family. You know, when I know everybody's in school and everybody's working, I might allow for more. Today happens to be a day both kids have something at school for another hour. I was like, yes, you know, I'm going to use that hour for something else. Okay. So let's get on to the time targets and blocks. So you all received a time tracker worksheet. You know, I've noticed when I was playing with it the other day, I noticed there's a few things I might improve upon it, but I really wanted something that was easy to do. So I just kind of started filling in on what might be a typical day or a typical week for me. And then you'll see. So it's really the time tracker is that one part about recording. And why are we going to record? Well, there's a couple of reasons why we're going to record. One is you need to know where it's going so you know what to fix, right? If you don't know what the problem lies, like you could call me and say, Leslie, I don't have enough time, fix it. And I'm going to say, okay, where's it going? You know, I can't fix what I don't know is broken. The symptom is you don't have enough time, right? But you don't know where the problem is. And so the time tracker really helps you identify the problem. And I hope you've put it to some use. This is a tool, and I was talking with one of my clients about this, and she was like, you know, I know that sounds so rudimentary, and it is rudimentary. It's basic. It's not WYSIWYG. It's not flash and dash. But the honest truth is, I do this. Like when I notice that I don't feel as productive, and I'm going, what am I spending my time on? Why did you know what? I don't feel like I did a whole lot this week, and I was sitting at my computer a lot more than I needed to be then. I do this as a gut check, as a little thermometer, if you think about it, of how I need to shift. Where does it need to go? What am I really wasting my time on? And how do I need to change that? So the time tracker is kind of that first part. You've received it. I would love for you to go ahead and just do it for 1 week, do it for 2 weeks if you need to see a pattern. The nice thing and what you will find almost immediately, like within the first day or two of you doing this, is you start challenging yourself about what it is you're spending your time on. Because there's a basic human nature that if we record something, we're naturally inclined to improve it. It's a wonderful thing. I think Jim Rohn even said, you know, easy 10%, track something. You want to improve anything 10%, track it. Because you raise your consciousness about it. And therefore, even when you're not concentrating on it, your mind's going, oh, that's a waste of my time. I don't need to be doing that. So you naturally improve. So it's kind of fun to do that. But that's the first kind of step in this is to really complete that time tracker. Now, when you do that, you should be able to kind of, I hope you guys can see this. I know it's just a little small, but you should be able to come in here and put your hours that you're using. Okay, so just based upon what I was playing with, I said, you know, it's not uncommon for people to have 10 hours a week in admin time, especially if you have team. Okay, not uncommon there. Working on your business is actually more common for that people don't have time dedicated. So I just went and said 0. HR training and development, that's not always a focus, or sometimes it's too much a focus. It tends to be on the opposite sides of the spectrum. Marketing, you know, we're all out there marketing. What are you doing? This just has 5 hours, and sales 2, and then client project management at 25. Now, there's 2 ways to look at time targets. Okay, you could say, and I think this added up to like 43 hours. So the far column over here where we're talking, where there's numbers here, this is if you took those same 43 hours and put them according to the percentages. Now, the percentages are merely guidelines. You could be at client and project management, really could be at anywhere between 30 and 50%. You're working on the business, depending on where you are in working on your business, could be, I think we have 10% here. It could be 20%. I've spent times where it's been 50%, depending on where my business is, okay? But if you're in a high growth mode, you're probably close to 8 hours of working on your business so that you can get that business growth. If you are working in a bit more of a, I won't say plateau, I say maintenance kind of level. Like for the Your Biz Rules business, we're a year old, almost. Oh my gosh, Amy, we're almost a year old today. That's hilarious. Oh, I'm gonna have to check with you. When did we go live? That would be really funny to find out. But we're about a year old from our launch, and so the last year has been about a lot of working on the business to put the pieces into place so that we can serve people the best, to be able to do that. Where we're at now is a much more about gaining volume. Right? We've built a lot of the pieces. Now we're in a volume mode. So I don't have to work on the business as much right now, right? Where I need to be spending a lot more time is marketing and sales. That should be the bulk of my work right now, not so much working on the business. That just shifts. And I give that to you because you just need to know that these are guidelines. These are expectations that some weeks you will be heavy, some weeks you will be light. We're talking about averages over time. But when we're looking at 1 week, we have to have some little line in the sand to be able to judge ourselves against. So if we took those same 43 hours and just used the percentage goals that I've given to you, the outside column is where we should be. And so when you can see, like in this instance, we're really heavy on administrative time as the owner of the business, that's a huge opportunity for you, okay, to get that down to 2.5. That actually goes on to the next step. We'll talk, and we'll go over that in a second. But you can see where things are supposed to be. The other way to do this, so this is saying, I already work 40 hours, I'm happy working 40 hours, this is what I want to do. The other part of it is if you took whatever number of hours you actually wanted to work. So let's say I only wanted to work 20 hours a week, and I went through and just did the percentages. I know that I need at least 10 hours for client management. I need 2 hours for sales. I need 4 hours for marketing. I need, what does that make? 1 hour, 5%? I'm really horrible at math on the fly, but you get the point. You can take the number of hours that you want to work and you break them out by these same time targets to know what space you need to claim in your schedule. Okay, so this is the planning part of it. You can do this each and every week if you want. I have cases like last summer, and actually if you go on to our website later and search default calendar, there's actually a couple blog articles that I did last summer when I was getting ready for last summer. And I basically set my working hours a day, when I would work, what days I would work, and how many hours I was willing to work. So if I said I wanted Mondays, I think I said I wanted Mondays and Fridays off. I wanted to work Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but only 20 hours. I think that was right. Maybe 17 in there somewhere. That's the boundary in which I'm willing to play this game. And then I really went through this and said, okay, how do I service my clients? How do I still maintain marketing? How do I do, sales and all the other part? And I put containers in my space. And I went through the entire summer and I planned it out because summertime for us is vacation, camps. Golly, they go to a zoo camp, which I love to send them to, but it's an hour drive each way for me, so it's an entirely different kind of week when I can be working and when I can't be working. And I go through all of that aspect, the whole exercise for the whole summer, and every week looks different. When I get into what I consider, prime work zone, then I can be a little more regulated. But even then, I like flexibility. Like I told you at the beginning, I'm a maverick. I like to not feel so trapped. I like to be able to accommodate my day's whims as much as I can because it just makes me feel happy. And so that's an important part of that. Well, I can use that same concept to rearrange things. So let's talk about this for a second into step 3. So we're talking about using rocks, using chunks, and deadlines. Okay, you've heard these phrases before. This is not brand new, but I'm trying to give them to you in a different frame. So if you look at this, statement, and if you've ever seen this done live, it's kind of fun the first time. But if you put in all the little stuff, which is, let's say, the sand grains are, everything you've got to do, your business, maybe all the fun stuff, or all the, let's just call it your business area. Maybe some of your business is some of these medium-sized pebbles, but these large rocks are your family. They're your time, your workout time, your I want to take this class time, this if you're like me, I don't like to work Fridays period time. Those things come first, right? When you put them in first and then add in the medium things and then add in the sand, everything fits. But when those family and working out and vacations and everything else that we put off because they're personal are the last things to come in, they don't fit. So it's doing things in the reverse. I start with my family, my life, and me first, and then the business gets what's left over. Might sound a little backwards, but it actually really works. And I will say that if you are struggling to work out, if you can never find time for something, but you really want to do it and it would be something good for you, then it's probably one of these big rocks. The first thing you want to do, if you've been sitting on the someday aisle, waiting for success to come and you to be able to do X, is to put X into your schedule today. Put X into your schedule. Put your workout into your schedule. If you want to take a week vacation every quarter, put that into your schedule before everything else. You're setting your intention. You're setting the rules of the game. You're setting the boundaries in which everything else can operate. So if it's really important to you that you volunteered 10 hours and that feeds your soul and it's what you want to do and it's been on your someday aisle list, start to put that on your calendar first and then make everything else work. So when I say I come at this from a very family first, life first vantage point, this is why. Everything else has to work in frame of my life because I only get one life. I can have 10 businesses, but I only get one life. I only really get one family, and I don't want to have to do any do-overs over there. Doesn't bother me as much to have to do a do-over in business. So put your big rocks in first into your calendar. Go through and put your everyday vacation. Go through and put your workout schedule. My workout schedule is set as a reoccurring appointment. I have a reoccurring appointment to pick up my children at 2:30. They don't get out of school until 3, but I know if I don't stop working at 2:30, I will work till 3:05. I have to give myself the boundary so that I can get a snack, make my little shake, get in the car, go up to the carpool line, pick up my children, visit with some friends in the process. Okay, that's a recurring thing on my calendar. And it's big as day because if it wasn't on my calendar, I'm going to have a tendency to book something else. I've done it. I've done it. And so this is what I know. You have to put those rocks in first. The chunking aspect. Okay, so this is one of the sample calendars from last summer. So you can see there's some hard boundaries. This was actually zoo camp. Hard boundaries there, right? And I had to be flexible. I had to move my workout around. I didn't work out as much this week, and I was okay with that. But you can still see I had a lot of marketing in my calendar, marketing and sales in my calendar. You notice on the time tracker, color-coded because I want you to be able to glance at your schedule and see, but green is marketing and sales. So I always like to make sure there's at least a lot of green on my calendar. I know that if there's not, my pipeline's not being filled. The other part is operations. So this I just stripped down because I could only work so much. Marketing operations, serving a client or finding a new client. That's all I was doing. Okay, that is enough to keep your business alive. That is enough to be profitable. Okay, but chunking, you'll notice if you can see this, like even at the end when there's a VIP day, it's a big block of time. There's nothing really there lower than an hour. I do have space in my calendar so that if I have an oops, there's room to move things You know, when we come to time management, we think it's about butting up an appointment after appointment after an appointment. Let me just give you an example from the coaching world. And I've been on both sides of this, right? When you have an appointment with a coach and they're late because the previous appointment was right up against yours and that was running over 15 minutes. You know, there's times to where, and I can say as a coach, to where I'm like, no, I'm giving you this 15 minutes. Let's take care of this, you know, because I understand the impact that it could have. But when you have so many appointments, back up, back up, back up, back up, because that's the way we've been taught about time management. One thing goes wrong and your whole day is screwed, right? Your whole day can't be flexible. I'm not talking about huge amount of space, but man, 30 minutes is barely enough to get up, go to the restroom, get something to eat, get something to drink, get ready for the next thing, and move on. Okay, so it's really about allowing some space in there, but allowing those chunks. The chunks are about the moments, right? They're about building up those moments so that you can have creationary. My personal opinion is, unless it's like checking email, calling the bank, you know, something that is very simple, 30 minutes isn't enough for anything. It's not enough to be productive. And so even on those 30 minutes, I might check my email. I might do my Facebook posting, you know, but you'll see I have an appointment right after. I can't spend a whole lot of time out there. I don't have it to spend. Okay. And we'll talk about that in a second, but it's basically the chunk. So if you're in a creation mode, and work with my clients, I have a lot of clients that have creative elements to their business, and an hour isn't really enough. If you think about it, it takes you a good 15, 20 minutes to get into the rhythm, to find the information you need, get all your supplies sewed together, and, you know, be able to get those things done. Then maybe you're creating for 30 minutes and then you start to wrap up. So you really only get 30 minutes of creation in an hour, but if it's an hour and a half, you actually get an hour of creation. If it's 2 hours, you get an hour and a half of creation. You have the ability to have complete thought. You have the ability to be present in your working moment, to get into the flow, to create a moment, to be in a bubble and be present. You actually get so much more done than you could ever imagine. Because if you can think of, I've got a project, I want to develop a product. Well, I think I might need 8 hours. Who cares if you're wrong and you need 12? You're starting with a baseline. I need 8. Okay. I'm going to give myself 8 hours. And then when you start to plan it in your schedule and give these blocks of 2 hours, my suggestion, you can start to go, oh, I could work on that for 2 hours, but then I need a break, and then I could come back to it for another 2 hours, but I can't work on it again for another, oh my gosh, a week. Okay, so that really means I need to adjust, right? If you've ever had what I call time slippage, you know, where all of a sudden the days have turned into weeks and turned into months, it's because you didn't give a chunk or container for whatever it was about that task that needs to be done. So if it's a recap after a client, if it's you need time to process and do notes and then send 3 emails because this client generated that work, you have to allow the space and the chunks to be able to do that so that you can get it all done, in all honesty. If you think about it, you can only get 1 to 3 major things done in a day, depending upon their size. And if that was all that you had to do, but you actually got them done, your to-do list would dwindle. I don't have a to-do list. If I have states where I feel a little overwhelmed, because we all do, I will write one down. I have not had one in a year, I will think, that has been longer than maybe 6 things. Part of the reason is by putting these rocks in, by putting these chunks in, by planning out the week, planning out the month, whatever it takes, planning out the task, planning out the project. I get it done. So it doesn't sit on my to-do list. Okay. That is probably one of the biggest things that people don't consider is when they, especially if they bring in something new on their plate, how much time does this need? And when can I give it to them? If you've got a new project and it requires for you to work on that project in order to present a deadline, how much time do you need and when do you need it? When you start to do that, okay, you start to actually be so much more productive about things, and you'll start wasting less time in email land or Facebook land or phone or all those other aspects that are out there to distract us, because we're easily distracted because we don't have a purpose. We haven't given that time block that we've been gifted purpose. And so that's what some of the chunking does. Let's talk about deadlines. So deadlines are like the shark in the fish tank. And I love this story. I think I read it. Oh my gosh, if it wasn't in Good to Great, it was in E-Myth. So I can't quite remember which story it came from. I think it was E-Myth. But it's a story about a company wanting to fly fresh fish from one coast to the next. They spent millions on a plane with tanks and, oxygen systems and all this nice fun stuff to be able to fly fresh fish across the coast and one day truly, truly, truly have fresh fish. So they've put in all this money, all this planning into this project, and they fly their first flight. They get to California, I believe it was, and the fish are all dead in the water. They just spent a lot of money to have dead fish. So they hire a consultant, a coach, who comes in, takes a look at everything, basically says, put a shark in the tank. A small one that's not going to eat the fish, but put a shark in the tank. What that shark did over through the course, so they took another flight, got to California, fish all alive. Only thing different was this shark. This shark created tension, right? He couldn't really do any damage to the fish, but he kept the fish on their toes. He created tension. If you think about it, deadlines, having something else we have to go do, is a way of creating tension in our work and in our time. If our time has no tension, then it has no boundary, then it has no purpose, it has no reason that we have to get it done. It leads us to being able to delay it, to procrastinate, or not make a decision. But when you have actually gone and set your time, and you can look at tomorrow and know that you have 2 client appointments, you have time to be able to write this article or produce this blog or whatever it is, and then you need to be able to be at your son's lunch at noon because you've committed to that. You don't have time to do it tomorrow. Today becomes the best time. Today becomes the reason you have to do it, right? So there's a bit of creating these artificial tension in your time so that you actually fulfill on it, because it's our nature to delay. It's our nature to procrastinate. I can do it along with the best of us. Some days I do it more, some days I do it less, but it's always because there's not tension in my calendar. There's not something else I have to go do. I must do. I must keep a commitment to yourself. I'll let you know, working out is something I do, something I have not been the most consistent about. I'm working on that, because consistency to me is discipline. And if I'm not disciplined in my health, how am I not being disciplined in my business? And so I know I have to get disciplined here so that it's complete. The tension for me in working out is that I need to work out at this time because I've made a promise to myself and I am showing discipline. And I think the podcast quote that I put out there today is, if you're tired of starting over, then quit stopping. I'm like, that's tension. So the rocks define the boundaries. The chunking uses what's left, and the deadlines create tension. If you're missing one of those elements, it won't work. Okay, it just won't work as well. So I've given you a lot of information. What I will say is, know that it is a process. My clients, we work on it months, at a time. We have to revisit it. It is kind of like eating well. You fall off the wagon a little bit, you got to pick yourself back up and get on the wagon. It's just kind of one of those nature of courses, unless you are super disciplined and super regimented with that. I, by nature, am not. I'll be honest. So when you look at this, you really have three next steps in order to be able to do this. And you almost have to get used to one and two a little bit. Two shows you three. Putting your calendar and your schedule into impact shows you how you can be flexible yet firmly rooted. It's a little bit like that shell game I was telling you about, being able to move things around and having the space to be able to do that. And then again, it's about sustaining the tension. So there's even just more things about building tension into this to make it impactful for you and make it easy to sustain. So those are our five rules of time. I hope you learned something new, or at least learned something, a new way to do that. You know, at the end of all of our calls, I invite you that if you want to talk about your business, if you want to talk about the growth in your business and how you're using time and how you could actually have things working better for you, I always invite you to be able to apply for a breakthrough laser session. What I know, you know, what I love is what I know is it's not about me at all. It's about you. It always is about you. And so this is something that if you're willing to do and find out how you can make your business better, then I invite you to do this, because business isn't about getting the best of your competition or your clients. So, you know, it's about getting the best from yourself. And that's really what I'm committed to doing as a coach and with my clients. And I know, I hear from my clients how this is so the truth when it comes to working together. So I'll invite you to go to it's yourbizrules.app. I'm going to skip over our Patty. Patty actually was joining us today. Love Patty. Been able to do a lot with her business. Michelle, this is a person, I got to say, that had that business idea for 3 years. And in 3 months, we actually got our first client. So the only good time is today. Tomorrow's not going to be any better. So just make a choice and get things through. But if you're interested in talking, if you're interested to see what we can do for you and how we can drive your business forward, grow it in a way that does not mean working harder, then I invite you to go ahead and apply for one of our breakthrough laser sessions at yourbizrules.com/app. I think Webinar Jam should have given you a little pop-up so you can click and see what that's about. There is an application. It's not going to be for everyone. You need to complete it through the best of your ability. It tells me so much so that our time spent together is actually valuable, you know, and that we're actually doing something for you and not just wasting your time or my time. And the other part of it is if you remember the beginning of, you know, that drifter who doesn't know what they want, I want to help the people that are drifting, but you've got to choose what it is that you want. And so this is just the first step in saying, I choose this. I choose to find out what this is about and if this might be a right fit for me. No commitment, but you do got to give me just a smidgen of information. All right, guys, I will pop over here to the chat box. We have 3 minutes. I'm going to end on time for you. See if we have any questions. You know, Grace, you've been awesome in letting me know what you think out there. And you know what? Yes, some days I do celebrate more time to work on my business. I am in a mode of heavy family. And so just with everything that with the boys and my in-laws and remodel project at my house, you know, it does seem like I don't have as much time as I would like for my business. So yeah, you know, I do get happy when I can spend a little bit more time on something that I'm in love with. And I'm just as happy to sit for 8 hours, well, almost just as happy to sit for 8 hours on Saturday at 2 basketball games, 2 DI competitions, and a birthday party for my mother-in-law. So it all evens out in my world is the way that I look at it. And I actually will be working out during that hour, to be honest. But so would these tips work for someone with ADHD? You know, I think they do, Grace. I think all entrepreneurs have a bit of ADHD, to be honest with you. We'd get that shiny object syndrome. I'm not an expert in it, but I know that it does help create focus because it's about a process to refocus yourself. And a lot of bit of this system gives you the flexibility to change for the day and maybe how you're feeling and what you can do to allow space if you're not feeling well or if you need to deal with something and stuff like that. So it is a process to being able to do it. But what I like about the rules concept is that there are some steps you can follow. So when you fall off the bandwagon, and this is what I do, like I told you, when I get overwhelmed, I'm like, okay, where am I spending my time? Okay, that's where I'm spending my time. What is it that I feel like I'm not completing? Okay, that's what I'm not completing. Okay, where can I do this? What space do I have to be able to do it? So it is a lot of refocusing that it helps you do. It helps give you clarity in some advanced moves. It actually helps you start to say no to some things when you can see that your calendar has no space in it for 3 weeks. You're less likely to take on a new project. So I hope that helps. All right, guys, any other questions? Last questions. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you so much for being here. We've made some changes and upgrades to the presentation, so I'd love to hear your feedback. Again, if this is something for you and you want to talk with us a little bit more, just take, the 5 minutes it takes to finish the application and go to yourbizrules.com/app. And with that, I'll leave you with our favorite quote for the day. Like I said before, if you're tired of starting over, start stopping giving up. That's all for today. This has been Leslie Hassler with Your Biz Rules.